I was minding my own business, sitting on the couch on like a Sunday night, and I get an email uh, from some people at University of California, Berkeley, and they tell me that they want me to come and do a debate with this gentleman. Now, again, I don't know this dude. I don't. I don't. This is not my world. His name is Mosab Hassan Yousef. And apparently he is the son of a member of Hamas, one of the founders of Hamas. And sometime in the last 15 years, maybe 20 years, I don't know, maybe 15, no, whatever, he has come to depart, let's just say, from the views of Hamas and his father. But he's taken it way further than that. He now basically identifies as an Israeli. He doesn't say I'm an Israeli. He says I'm an Arab. But what he also says is words like we will destroy Hamas. We will fight the Palestinians. We will never let them rise to power. The we's that he says are in conversation with the Israeli government. He's not an Israeli citizen, so don't tell me, oh, well, Palestinian Arabs or Arab Israelis are citizens. No. He's from Ramallah. He ain't got near ID in Israel. He is just identifying with the Israeli government. He refers to Arabs as barbaric and uncivilized. He said he puts all the blame for Palestinian suffering on Palestinians. He has no criticism of Israel. I don't know much about him. I've just seen a couple videos here and there. I knew he converted to Christianity, got asylum in the U.S. with some help, and was here. And he goes around the country saying, I'm the son of Hamas. I know better than everybody else. I was the son of Hamas. I mean, they literally just call him son of Hamas because it's like it draws attention. It makes people want to know what's going on, especially now. He's been doing that. His Son of Hamas book came out like 15 years ago, something like that. They say, "Can you come speak?" Basically for nothing. Right now, look, everything ain't for money. Right? You do some things for free. You do some things for money. But they're asking me to fly to Berkeley for basically nothing. First, they said you could do Zoom or online. I said I might do a Zoom debate real quick. I'll debate a dude on Zoom. How hard is that? And there's you have to be there in person, but they offer almost no money. And then after 2 or 3 days of negotiation, they found some money. I don't know where they found the money at. I don't know why suddenly it went from like $0 to like a reasonable amount. But we finally figured it out. And they said, we're bringing you and we found the money because we want you to have a conversation with this person. We want both sides represented. I'm always skeptical. People say we want both sides represented because I don't know what that means. Like the oppressor oppressed voices, the colonizer colonized. Everybody needs to be heard. Like some shit don't need to be two-sided. But they said the students want you, and we want it to be. I said, well, who's this for? Who's paying me? Who's bringing me on? So they told me the campus organization at Chabad, which is a Jewish organization. I ain't got no problem with that. I support Jewish organizations. I support Jewish students. I support Jewish people. I'm like, cool. I'm good with that. They said, but the Muslims will be there, the Palestinians will be there, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So I said, okay, cool. It'll be a nice crowd. We'll have a nice spirited debate. And I should have known that things were going to go a little funny style. They said it would be an Oxford style debate, where a proposition is made, a motion is made. For example, the motion on the floor is that Zionism is settler colonial, or Hamas is a terrorist organization, right? Somebody makes a motion, then you either, support that motion or you go against that motion, depending on what your politics are. And that's how the debate goes. You've seen Oxford debates before. And so I'm waiting for the motion. The debate was Thursday, yeah. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday night. They still had no motions. They said, we'll give it to you before you get on the plane. Now, they had sent me a preliminary list the night before, but they said some of these questions might change. It's not going to be one motion. It's going to be like 10 motions. You're going to be, I was like, okay, well, I need to know what they are. I flew all the way to California, still didn't have them. 2 hours before the event. Still don't have them. Now I arrive on campus. Everybody's very nice to me. Everybody, all the organizers, all the people, great conversation, great, very sweet people, brought me food. I have nothing bad to say about these people. About 5 minutes before the event starts, I meet this man. And he's a little creepy. Again, polite to nice, but very intense eyes. Reminded me of, if you watch wrestling, the old manager of The Undertaker, the original manager of The Undertaker. And so I'm like, I'm trying to figure this out. And we're speaking, he asked me a question, and he asked me something in Arabic. And I answered him in Arabic, and then we started speaking Arabic for maybe like 5 to 8 minutes until we went on stage. Now I walk out there. Now I've been speaking for a long time. And I've been doing debates for a long time. I know when I'm being sandbagged. I know when the deck is stacked. I know when there isn't evenness out there. I walk out there and it's very clear this is not a 50-50 audience. When I walked into the building, I could see just from who was in line that it wasn't a fit. I mean, if you're holding an Israeli flag, I assume you're not pro-Palestinian. And so it was so crazy. The first thing I did before I said answer any questions, I said, how many of you would identify as pro-Palestinian? 3 people raised their hand. There's a couple hundred people in this room. 3. And those 3 were like barely raising their hand. Now at this point, they had given me the list of questions. I like to prepare. So this is like, maybe I got the list of questions on my way from San Francisco airport to Berkeley, which anybody who knows the area knows that ain't far. Might be a long time, but it ain't far. So the first thing they do is ask me a question that's not on the list.
First question. What is Palestine and what is Israel? I would like Mr. Hill to first respond.
Okay. Thank you. Didn't know that question was coming. Thank you. Just curious, how many people here identify as pro-Palestinian? Okay, just making sure. All right. See if it was a home game or not,
Looks like you got a representation there.
Yeah.
And by the way, that question, it was added here by me just because I felt like we needed to define. I think it's a good way to get into it.
Yeah. Because the thing I've learned to do is not hold it in, not be polite. I mean, be respectful, but I'm not going to be so respectful that I cover up for other people's harm. Like, y'all didn't give me the right information. Y'all barely gave me the information, And then the debate really goes. And then over the course of the debate, what I realize happens is the guy's not really answering the questions. He is just playing to the lowest, basest, most egregious, most disgusting, most stereotypical narratives. He's saying Zionist talking points. He's saying Orientalist descriptions of Arabs and Palestinians and Muslims. He is sometimes just lying. But in this debate, it wasn't me against my interlocutor. It wasn't me against Mosab Hassan Yousef. It was me against Mosab. It was me against the audience, and it was me against the moderator. Now, I'm not saying that as a complaint. I really feel like I won the debate. The debate is on YouTube. I see someone asking the question. Dale Cooper asked, where can we watch the video? You can go to my YouTube channel. It's there. It went up yesterday. I think it says epic debate or something like that between me and Mosab Hassan Yousef. And yeah, he seemed fanatical to me too. He is fanatical. And the crowd is like groaning at everything I say. I'm cool. I done played role games before, but I mean, he at one point said Arabs are complaining. They lost the war. They lost their land in the war. They just have to basically suck it up and take it. And I said, well, that's not legal. You can't just take people's land after you win a war. Like land acquisition by force is illegal. And like at least I swear to God, you can hear it if you watch the video. Like 30, I was like a big chunk of the crowd was like, says who? And they're laughing as if like I just said something ridiculous. I'm like, there is no law on the books that says that this is okay. And there are plenty of laws that say it's not okay. I mean, post World War II, the whole idea was that we respected the nation state, that the nation at least had borders and territorial integrity, and that we would respect the borders of others and the nations of others. So it was no longer the old empire model where might makes right, where you go and you fight, you win a war, and you accumulate land. That's how empires were built, but that's not how nations are sustained. And Israel itself, after 1967, asked for and appreciated the development of UN resolutions 242 and 338 in particular that forced people to recognize their territorial integrity. The very reason, at least ostensibly, why Zionists and other Israelis say affirm Israel's right to exist, they're talking about territorial integrity, meaning you can't come in by force and take our stuff. But they're basically saying, yeah, well, we took your stuff and you just got to learn to keep it. You learn to deal with it. That's what he was saying. So even when he was clearly in violation of international law, even when he was saying something that should have been offensive to people, it didn't seem to matter. I mean, he starts his talk by saying that Palestine doesn't exist. It's not a place. And that there never was a Palestine. Again, silly, sophomoric Zionist talking point, right? No, there wasn't a country called Palestine, but again, the idea of the country or the nation state is relatively new. It's like 100 years old. So anything older than 100 years old might not be a country or a nation state, but doesn't mean it wasn't real. And similarly, the idea of Israel, according to Zionists, is much older than 1948. So are you saying Israel wasn't real until 1948? That flies in the face of many of the Zionist narratives. So those contradictions weren't really dealt with. They weren't wrestled with. And then you got the moderators, who, again, very nice to me. We had a great phone conversation. We've spoken before and since. I'm not trying to talk behind nobody's back or be shady. I said this to him at the event. He had a tendency to say things as if they are true that weren't true and then present them as fact. So he goes, the overwhelming majority of Palestinians in Gaza, voted for Hamas. Does this mean that Palestinians all want Jews to be dead? That's not exactly what he said, but more or less. And I pause and say, well, that's just factually untrue. Like the majority of Palestinians in Gaza didn't vote for Hamas. We could talk about whether they should or shouldn't have, because I don't think we should just all summarily dismiss any legitimacy in the voting choices that people made back then or now in terms of Hamas. But I'm just saying that's just factually untrue. People didn't. And he insists that they do. And I'm like, it's not true. Like, you can ask me a question and we can disagree on my answer. I can disagree on your presuppositions. But as a matter of fact, I said 43, but it's actually 44% of Palestinians in Gaza voted for Hamas in 2006. That's not the majority. And it's certainly not an overwhelming majority. It's not even a simple majority. So, but when you say that and then ask me to respond, and then you only give me 2 minutes, a time frame that my debate opponent, consistently exceeded. When you do that, the audience is left to assume that it's true because the moderator has presented it as true, as an unquestionable fact. And the only thing we're going to talk about is how we feel about that fact. He's made it up. Just made it up. And so this is how the debate went on and on and on. And so by the end, you can see I'm a little agitated. I'm a little frustrated because the misinformation and disinformation is getting more and more plentiful. And the space and opportunity for me to respond is getting smaller and smaller. But I still think y'all should watch the debate.
Israel was not a colonial power. They had the authority and the backing for a long time, up until about 1936, maybe 39, depending on how you think about it, of the British. It's a settler colonial project. A colonial project is to come in and exploit people, to come in and dominate. A settler colonial project is where you come in to replace the people who are there through processes of extraction and erasure and removal. You're saying, yeah, they've had the same language, but yeah, but modern Hebrew is a 20th century construct, right? Tel Aviv is a modern construct. That's not a bad thing. We need modern constructs. But let's not pretend that the creation of these things was not a direct response to the erasure of Palestinian people, Palestinian culture, Palestinian life in the region. That is what makes it settler colonial. They settled and they colonized. And again, nobody who was actually doing the colonizing denied it. They literally had a department for it. They had description of it. Jabotinsky and Herzl explained how and why they were colonizing. And now we're just pretending that didn't happen.
So if I'm getting you right, you're saying that a settler colonial project is what Herzl, replacing the people there in the land, is what their colonialism was. That's what they meant by that colonialism.
That's not. I'm not saying that's what they meant. I'm saying that's literally what they said. They literally said that. Initially, Jabotinsky, if you read the Iron Wall, says, "What? I'd like coexist. I'm not trying to get rid of anybody." But he also acknowledged that no people, and he gave other examples of colonization around the world. He said no people is just going to let this happen. They're going to fight back. He said the success of this project hinges upon the response, not on what we do, but on what the Arabs do in response. And he said then he told you what they were going to do. If you read the work of Benny Morris, who might be I would argue, the preeminent Israeli historian, he said that the Zionist project was dependent upon what? Transfer, which is a fancy, warm and fuzzy word of saying expulsion. Okay. Which he says. I'm not speaking for him. He says it.
Of time. Thank you. In 1948, just before and immediately after Israel's declaration of independence, an estimated 700,000 Palestinians left their homes in the state of Israel and took their keys, expecting to return to their homes after the Arab armies said that they would destroy the new state of Israel. And they did not. Israel successfully fought off those armies, and the Palestinians settled in camps, now built up neighborhoods in West Bank, Lebanon, Syria, and Jordan. The Palestinians call that evacuation the Nakba, or Great Catastrophe. Is the Nakba the responsibility of Israel? And I will start with you, please.
Now watch how this fool answers the question. And then I'm gonna end this in a minute, but I just want you to watch. Now, just for context, I was asked a question and I answered it. I gave evidence. And even when he attempted to kind of slightly tweak words to make it seem like I'm saying something different, like, so that's your interpretation of what they said, or do you think they meant? No, that's what they said. Israel had a Department of Colonization. Herzl said this is a colonizing adventure. Jabotinsky said we are colonizing. But you notice as the moderator's asking the questions, he frames it in a way that clearly favors the other side. I want you to hear the vibe just for a second, then we're going to jump to something else. And yes, I'm eating salt and vinegar chips.
The genocide.
And by the way, I think you can tell this is not a 50-50 Palestinian, pro-Israel, pro-Palestine crowd, just based on the applause, based on people's body language, based on what people are nodding at and what they're not.
all this type of allegations is the failing attempt of the loser.
The
That
loser.
wants to turn defeat into something else. It's a culture that is based on honor and shame, not right and wrong. It's very shameful, and it has
You think
been
Arab culture,
for the
Palestinian
Arab
culture is not
leaderships
based
to
on
just
right and wrong.
accept defeat. And if you don't accept defeat, you can never know victory, by the way. So they call it a Nakba. It's a disaster. But who's responsible for that disaster? Was it the Arab miscalculation when Israel was extremely outnumbered and they came with this inflated Arabian ego, thinking that they are
Inflated
going to make the
Arabian
Jews
ego.
into a food of the fish of the sea? They used to say, you know, Arabic, تجوع يا سمك البحر. This was the slogan marching towards to annihilate the Jewish people. It was a big shock.
Chill right
My
there.
grandmother was asked to evacuate her farm as hundreds of thousands of Arabs left their farms because the Arab armies told them, you must evacuate. After we cleanse the land of the Jews, you can return to your homes. I don't need the United Nations to come educate me about anything because my grandmother is an eyewitness and she gave me her experience. This is what they told her. This is why she left her farm, because she was afraid to get caught up in the war. And the Arabs lost the war, and my grandmother never returned back to her farm. But you know what's amazing? My grandmother started her life again in the village of Bir Zayt near Ramallah and was able
She accepted
to
being evacuated.
start over and be very successful, sent all her children to get education. And what's remarkable about her? She never spoke anything bad about Israel. She never used the term Nakba. She never used the term occupation.
I mean, this is basically Uncle Tom. This is cooning. This is straight up cooning. And they're eating it up, just like they eat up Jesse Lee Peterson, just like they eat up, and by they, I mean whatever crowd has their interests served. So the Republicans eat up Jesse Lee Peterson. This crowd is eating up the son of Hamas. And you know why? Because he plays into every stereotype. When he talks, they were laughing at him. They were laughing at him. And they love that he says stuff like that. My grandmother left and she never came back, and she's never said a bad thing about Israel. She never complained. That's like saying, yeah, my great-great-grandparents were enslaved. And you know what? They never said a bad thing about white people. They never said a bad thing about the slave master. And when slavery was over, they just went about their business and sharecropped. You know? It's ridiculous. Yes, it's a minstrel show. Yes, it's a minstrel show. Yes, it is Arab Uncle Ruckus.
Now, I've listened to your black ass talk all day about how much you can't stand black folks.
Ain't two of them in the history of the world that's worth a squirrel for it.
How much you love white folks.
Best thing the good Lord ever did for the planet Earth.
I'm at a point now, y'all. I'm not debating these clowns no more. I was on a show tonight, and when it was over, I said, please don't ever invite me again. You know, because I can't do this anymore. I don't have the energy to fight with people who aren't operating in good faith. This dude does not argue in good faith. And the moderator was not attempting to stop it, because these events serve a political purpose. It's not to have a intellectual investigation into the roots of the Israel-Palestinian struggle. It's an attempt to advance a political cause. It's not mine. And they know that.